Why rich people never tell you how much they make. Have you ever asked someone how much they make, only to hear, "I'd rather not talk about money"? Maybe you've noticed something even stranger. The people who look rich online are often the loudest about their income. They show the cars, the houses, the watches, and the vacations. But the people who actually build serious wealth often avoid talking about their income altogether. Why? Is it privacy? Is it embarrassment? Or is there something much more strategic happening? In America, we're taught to think of income as a scoreboard. Your salary becomes a number that tells people how successful you are. Someone makes $50,000, another person makes $100,000, and someone else makes $500,000.
But here's the problem. Income is not wealth. And the people who understand that difference are often the least interested in telling you exactly how much they make. Think about it. If someone tells you they make $300,000 a year, what do you actually know about their financial life? Almost nothing. You don't know whether they owe $200,000 in debt. You don't know whether they spend $280,000 every year. You don't know whether their income depends entirely on one job. And you definitely don't know how much money they actually own. A high income can create the appearance of wealth without creating financial freedom. That's the first reason wealthy people are careful about discussing income. Income creates comparisons. Human beings naturally compare themselves to other people. And nowhere is that more obvious than in America. You hear that your friend got a $90,000 job. Then you start wondering why you're only making $65,000. Your coworker gets promoted. Suddenly, your own salary feels smaller. Someone on social media claims they make $20,000 a month. Now you're questioning whether you're falling behind. But wealthy people often stop playing this comparison game. They understand that knowing someone else's income rarely improves your financial situation. Instead, it can create jealousy, insecurity, pressure, or unnecessary competition. And once people know how much you make, they may start treating you differently. A person earning $250,000 may suddenly become the person everyone expects to pay for dinner. A business owner may become the friend everyone assumes can lend money. A successful professional may attract relatives asking for financial help. So keeping income private isn't necessarily about being secretive. Sometimes it's simply about protecting relationships. Your income can become your identity. There's another reason wealthy people avoid discussing their income. They don't want their salary to become their identity. Imagine telling everyone you make $200,000. Eventually, people may begin associating you with that number, and that creates pressure. What happens if you leave your job? What happens if your business has a bad year? Suddenly, you're not just dealing with a financial setback. You're dealing with the fear of looking less successful. This is one reason financially intelligent people often focus less on showing income and more on building assets. Because a paycheck can disappear. An asset can continue producing value. A salary depends on your time, your employer, your industry, and your ability to keep working. But ownership can operate differently. Stocks, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, equity. These are the things that can potentially build wealth beyond your monthly paycheck. The rich think about net worth. This is where the conversation gets interesting. Most people ask, how much do you make? Wealthy people are more likely to ask, how much do you own? Those are completely different questions. Imagine two Americans. Person A earns $300,000 a year, but spends $290,000. Person B earns $120,000, but saves and invests $40,000 every year while building valuable assets. Who is actually moving closer to financial independence? The answer isn't automatically the person with the bigger paycheck. That distinction changes everything. Someone can earn millions of dollars during their lifetime and still retire with very little. Another person can earn a modest income, consistently invest,
avoid unnecessary debt, and eventually build substantial wealth. This is why chasing income alone can be dangerous. You can increase your salary without increasing your freedom. Lifestyle inflation is the silent wealth killer. There's a phenomenon called lifestyle inflation. You get a raise. You upgrade your apartment. You get another raise. You buy a nicer car. Your income increases again. Now you travel more, eat out more, subscribe to more services, and start paying for a lifestyle that requires your higher income to continue forever. The paycheck gets bigger, but the freedom doesn't. This is one of the biggest traps in modern American financial life. The goal should not simply be to make more money. The goal should be to make more money without allowing your expenses to rise at the same speed. That difference creates the gap between earning and building. And that gap is where wealth is created. Why high earners protect their privacy. There's also a practical reason wealthy people keep income private. Security. The more people know about your financial position, the more information they have about you. Your income can reveal your lifestyle, your spending power, and sometimes your social status. For business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, and executives, financial privacy can become even more important. They may not want employees, competitors, clients, neighbors, or strangers knowing exactly what they earn.
And in the age of social media, oversharing can create problems that didn't exist decades ago. You don't have to announce every financial achievement. You don't have to prove that you're successful. And you certainly don't need strangers online to validate your bank account. But there's a catch. Now, we should be careful. Not everyone who refuses to discuss income is wealthy. Some people hide their income because they're uncomfortable. Some people hide it because they're struggling. And some people simply value privacy. There's also a completely different category of people who constantly claim they're rich. They post screenshots, they show luxury cars, they rent expensive houses for videos. They tell you how much money they make. But sometimes, the person talking the most about wealth is the person trying hardest to convince everyone, including themselves, that they have it. Real wealth doesn't always need an audience. That's an important lesson in the social media era. What wealthy people actually talk about. If you listen carefully to financially successful people, their conversations often shift away from salary. They talk about ownership. They talk about businesses. They talk about taxes. They talk about investing. They talk about risk. They talk about cash flow. They talk about opportunities. And most importantly, they talk about time. Because once you have enough money, the most valuable thing you can buy isn't another luxury item. It's control over your time. Imagine waking up on Monday and knowing you don't have to work because you're financially capable of choosing what happens next. That is very different from simply having a large paycheck.
A person making $500,000 but terrified of losing their job may have a high income but limited freedom. Someone with enough investments and assets to cover their expenses may have far more control over their life. That's why wealth is ultimately about more than money. It's about options. So, should you never talk about money? Not necessarily. In fact, talking about money can be incredibly useful. Americans often avoid salary discussions, but knowing what people in your profession actually earn can help you negotiate better. If you never discuss compensation, employers can sometimes benefit from the information gap. Learning the market rate for your skills can help you recognize whether you're being underpaid. So the lesson isn't never talk about money. The better lesson is know when talking about money helps you and when it only feeds comparison. Talk about money when it helps you negotiate. Talk about investing when it helps you learn. Talk about personal finance when it helps you make better decisions. But don't feel obligated to announce your income simply to prove that you're successful. The real secret. Here's the biggest secret behind wealthy people and income. They understand that the number on your paycheck is only one part of the equation. The real game is what you do with the money after you receive it. If you earn $100,000 and spend $100,000,
your income hasn't created wealth. If you earn $100,000 and consistently use part of it to acquire productive assets, reduce bad debt, build an emergency fund, and invest for the future, you're creating something much more powerful. You're creating financial resilience. And over time, resilience can become independence. So the next time someone refuses to tell you how much they make, don't automatically assume they're hiding something. They might simply understand that income is personal. They might understand that wealth isn't a competition. And they might understand one of the most important financial lessons of all. You don't need to look rich to become rich. You need to own more. You need to owe less. You need to control your spending. You need to invest consistently, and you need to stop measuring your financial progress against someone else's paycheck. Because at the end of the day, the person with the biggest income isn't necessarily winning. The person building the greatest amount of financial freedom is. And that's the difference between making money and building wealth. Subscribe to Finance Infinity for smarter money lessons and wealth building strategies.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, support the journey.